Hello all you shining stars and welcome back to another What's the Soup Saturday. In today's video, I'm going to dive into Poshmark and some tips and things you need to know when it comes to being a seller. Now, I can't attest to being a buyer. I do know some of the things that, the buyer perks, buyer protect that is offered. But I can't really attest to being a buyer because I've never bought anything from Poshmark myself. I've just sold things. Okay, so the number one point I want to make is that Poshmark seems more buyer friendly than seller friendly. And the reason why I say that is because when you are a seller, you can expect to lose a lot of money. I guess in the point that Poshmark takes a huge cut of what you sell. Now, the nice thing with being a seller when it comes to Poshmark is that your buyer pays the shipping. So that's something that you don't have to worry about because you get pre-shipping labels when it comes to them purchasing the product and you sending the product. And you get the tracking and Poshmark gets the tracking and the buyer gets the tracking. So that's all taken care of. That's one nice thing. Once in a blue moon, Poshmark will offer $9.99 shipping to the buyers when they do like little promotions and stuff like that. I've only seen it happen about once a month, but the buyer pays the shipping, which is a nice thing. But again, there is that cut that's taken off right out of the get-go. For example, I sold a $19 palette and I only made $13 of the sale. So yeah, and it goes up the more you sell a product for, the less money you're actually going to make from it because they'll take a bigger percentage of your sales. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now you will see me looking off to the side because I did make myself a little list of what I wanted to bring up in this video. All right, so I'm going to dive right into my tips as a seller. Now, as a seller, my biggest tip is to think like a buyer. When you make your listing, you want to be as transparent as possible. If it's brand new in box, then you say, this is brand new, it's never been used, it comes with a box. If it doesn't come with a box, you have to make mention of that. You have to be really conscientious when you make your listing because you are protecting yourself as much as you are attracting the buyer. And you also want as many pictures as possible with the actual product and you holding the product. Don't rely on, it's okay to have one stock photo as like your main photo, a Google image, but when people look at the listing, you want pictures, you want them to see the actual condition that the product is in. And the reason why I say thinking like a buyer for that one is that I am, as a buyer, which I haven't bought anything off Poshmark, I'm more likely to get the item that is transparent, that has the pictures, not just stock photos that says it comes with a box or it doesn't, it's been opened, seal's been broken, used once, used twice. Just be transparent when it comes to, again, this is thinking like a buyer. Remember when you were listing the item that the buyer is going to pay 9 times out of 10, $12.99 shipping. Sometimes it might be marked down by Poshmark themselves, where they will offer it for $9.99 or $8.99. However, but if you're not offering the discount yourself, they're going to be paying $12.99. Just case in point, if you're going to sell an item from Sephora that you have, say a chocolate gold palette, for instance, you've already used the colors, you've been transparent in that, and you want to sell it for $50 because you paid $65 for it, or you want to give a bit of a discount. Chances are you're not going to be able to sell it for what you want because that person, that $50 is going to turn into $62.99 when they can spend $65, $3 more and get the palette brand new with box, never used or touched by you. So keep that in mind. Again, even if you haven't used it and you bought it, they're still getting it secondhand, right? So just keep that in mind when you're making your prices. It does show the listing of what the original price is, but you really, again, that's thinking like a buyer. That's realizing, okay, if that was me, would I buy that palette? Case in point, though, there might be different circumstances. Like if it's a limited edition palette that has been out of stock on Sephora website, which happens a lot for like a month, or an limited edition gingerbread palette that you can't get anymore, then that might give you a bit of leeway to be able to charge a little bit extra. With that being said, I'm going to dive into my tips for selling. Now, Poshmark has perks for buyers. If they like an item, as a seller, you can give all your likers an offer. And with that, and the reason why Poshmark does this is because they think that if someone likes your product, they are showing interest in buying it, obviously, right? Well, you can make an offer to those likers. However, it has to be a minimum 10% discount from the lowest advertised price. So it's not like you can get a bunch of buyers or a bunch of likers and say, "Oh, I'm going to try to, get this palette or whatever this item sold." So you go change the listing and you bump it up from, say, $19 to $17 when people like the item at $17. Well, you cannot offer that discount on the $19. That 10% will come off the $17 because it's the lowest advertised price that you've put on it. And then you are required, this is not an option, to give at least a $3 discount. So you can reduce the shipping to $9.99. You give them at least a 10% discount. And by the time that's all said and done, that palette that you were going to sell for $20, you are only going to end up making $11 off of. So with that in mind, you want to mark up the item when you sell it at least 30% above the lowest price that you're willing to go for it. And this has kind of been, I've made this mistake where I've lowballed myself when it comes to products that I'm selling. I'm more lenient when it comes to pricing items when I've used them. Because to me, again, thinking like a buyer, okay, I know this product is used. I know it's been in somebody else's hands. Do I really want that $30 discount bad enough? Right? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, as long as your seller is transparent and honest. So make sure that you give yourself some wiggle room when you are deciding what price you're going to list your item at. Just keep in mind that there are hopefully going to be people that are interested in that product, that you could possibly sell it quicker if you offer those people a discount. So yeah, and keep in mind about the extra shipping cost, and that $3 that you are required to give your likers is coming off of your final profits. They'll lower your money that you're going to make. My number one, always, and then there is a story to this, because I almost got scammed. There are buyer scammers out there. I mean, there's seller scammers and there are buyer scammers. Always, when you make a sale, film it. I'm talking about filming. When you film it, you film the condition that it's in. You want to reference what is in the description box to a T. If you send in the description box that's brand new and hasn't been opened, you show that. You open it up and just show like the little seal on the lid, or you hold it up to the camera, show that the seal is on it. You show yourself what the package is that you're packing into it, how you're packing it, show the shipping label, and then save the video. And you want to make sure you save the video until that money from the sale is in your account. And the reason why that is important is when the buyer gets the item, if they don't, they have options where they can rate it right away, and then your money will be released right away. If they accepted it, give you 5 stars. That's happened to me quite a few times. However, they have 3 business days or 3 days to, once they accept the item, to open a claim against you. So they can, like, if the item arrives damaged, if it's Canada Post's fault, Poshmark will cover the cost of the damage or the item, so that both the buyer and the seller are happy. But again, that's where that video is going to play in your favor. Not only in the seller's favor, but in the buyer's favor, just to protect you. That's why that's there. So they have 3 days, and then on the 4th day, your money gets released. And the 4th day, the money's taken out of the little holding pattern and put into your Poshmark account. Now, at that point, once that money is in that Poshmark account, the buyer cannot open up a claim. They cannot say, hey, I did not get the item, it wasn't as described. They cannot complain about it. Well, they could still complain about it, but it's not going to do them any good. And this is where my story comes into play here. So I had I had a buyer from Calgary, actually, not too far from where I am. She had ordered my Rhodile Soft Glow Drops. She bought it for $18. I only got like $13 of a profit from it. Plus she paid the $12.99 shipping. So she paid around, I'm really bad at math, about $30 for my Soft Glow Drops. And a week had passed, 5 full days. So, I mean, she didn't rate the item. She didn't touch the item. Like, when it comes to saying that it was shipped, it was delivered. But she said nothing. So 5 days passed. And in my email, I get an email that I got a rating from her. And I look at the rating. She gave me 1 star. 1 star for this item. And there's a reason why I think this lady was going to try and scam me. So there's a 1-star rating, and in the rating you get to choose two out of 5 reasons or something. She chose that the item was not as described and that the packaging could have been better. Now keep in mind, I did have that video. I did have the recording. I knew that I had described it perfectly because it was brand new. It had not been open. I filmed that. I referenced that in the video. So I was pretty sure that I was safe. And that 1-star rating stuck for, I think, a day, 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, next day, the 1-star rating is gone. Again, the reason why I think she was trying to scam me was because she was going to do the 1-star rating and try to get her money back for it. Maybe she changed her mind, or maybe it was her purpose, or maybe it was an honest mistake. This is just my theory. I'm not her. I don't know her reasonings, but I just found it very suspicious that she gave me a 1-star rating 5 days after the fact of receiving it and accepting it, and then all of a sudden she changes her mind. That part, it takes the rating away altogether. She hasn't rated the item since. It's just been nothing. No 1-star, no nothing. And I was 100% confident that I knew the item was exactly as described, and I knew that the packaging was done right. So that's why I think that was my theory, that I think she was trying to get the money back. Now the thing is, if from what I understand, I've never actually had, knock on wood, somebody try to send the product back to me or try to open up a claim against me within the time frame. I understand, what I take from the frequently asked questions is a buyer will open up a case and they have to prove the case. They have to give a photo evidence. Again, this is where you as a seller protecting yourself by making that video is going to help you in the long run. It's your just in case, better safe than sorry, and you want to make sure that video is filmed. They, as the buyer, they would have to send it back in order to get their money back. So Poshmark holds, like, as a third party, they hold the money. Buyer gets it. Buyer decides they don't want it. Poshmark will still hold that money until the item gets shipped back, and it has to be done within the 3 days. Because once you have the money as a seller, they cannot open a claim. They cannot get the money back. So rather they decide that they changed their mind, rather they decide that, whatever. So that's where you're protected as a seller and a buyer. Just looking at if there's anything else that I want to mention. Okay, yeah, I already talked about that. Oh, buyers will lowball you. I've had it happen many times. I had, you can offer bundles, right? You can go into your settings as a seller and you can offer 10% if somebody buys 2 items or more. I wouldn't recommend any more than that, because once you get into like 15% off of 3 items or 20% off of 4. You got to take into account the weight of what you're selling is going to take into effect. Poshmark, the pre-shipping label, I believe allows up to 5 pounds. Don't quote me on that. So when you're doing bundles and you're offering a bundling discount, you gotta keep in mind that the $12.99 does not change as far as I'm aware of. Like, they're bundling all those items so that they only have to pay $12.99 shipping for 3 items. However, if you are packing those 3 items, the weight's gonna go up. And if your weight goes above, I believe it's 5 pounds, or yeah, I think it's 5 pounds, then you as a seller have to pay for upgraded shipping label, and that will come out of your profits again. So if you're going to be doing bundles, I would recommend no more than 10% off of 2 items or more, especially if the item you're shipping is heavy and then the weight stacks up. Good for the buyer, not so much for the seller. Now, another thing is about being a seller, and if you decide you do want to buy something, and you can use your funds from what you sold on Poshmark towards buying something on Poshmark. So they keep it in an account. You have 2 options: keep it in the account or have it transferred to the bank. If you do transfer to the bank, it's going to take about 3 to 4 business days to show up in your account. My overall experience with Poshmark as a seller has been a positive one. It does suck that they take such a big cut, but again, I mean, it's a business model. They are offering you guys a service, reaching out to sellers, reaching out to buyers, connecting people, a little different than eBay. I don't really trust eBay. I do prefer Poshmark off of eBay. And there just seems to be more buyer perks for Poshmark when you're a buyer, which can help you as a seller, because that means you're going to be, you know, maybe able to sell those products as a profit. So my top 5 tips to sum up this What's the Soup video as we close in on 20 minutes. 1, Poshmark is going to take a cut. So you got to keep that in mind and try to set your price as what you're selling it to be about 30% off the lowest price that you're willing to take for it. Number 2, pictures of the actual product. Be transparent and think like a buyer, especially when you're making a listing. Number 3 is to record as a shipper. Record everything right before you're going to ship. The condition of it, refer to your description, your listing, to protect yourself as much as you're protecting the buyer. And in that listing, make sure that you put whether it comes with a box or not, whether it's been used, if the condition's gently used, or hey, get my used stuff for like a fraction of the cost, that kind of thing. Number 4 is to keep in mind that the buyer has 3 business days after they have the item to open up a claim against you. Once your money has been released, so the 4th day, they can no longer make a claim against you. And number 5, just watch out for buyer scams, because it does happen. For instance, just an example would be if they open up a case against you and then they end up sending you back the item empty because they used it or transferred it into a different container. That can happen, and some people are scammers. All right, all you shining stars, thanks for watching my What's the Soup Saturday, and I hope you keep on being shining stars, even if I'm not around as often to remind you. Bye! Happy selling on Poshmark!